House Majority Whip Tom Emmer and Majority Whip Congressman. You don't call someone like a whip, do you? Whip Emmer? Is Congressman, is that what we go with? We do leaders. Go ahead.
If everybody around here, Joe, calls me either whip or something that I can't repeat on this
really
program.
I'm going to do whip then, because if you're they love when I call people leader. They love when they call people leader. They love, a leader this, leader Hoyer. They love when you call it leader. I'm just going to call you Congressman. So
you can call me whatever you want, Joe.
Yeah, just call me for dinner. I saw an article the other day. It was so disingenuous, Congressman. It was somewhere where they said, the pushback, these guys were really hearing it. And I looked at it. It was all Democrats that were crashing the local congressional meeting. But you're not going to see that. They're going to say, oh, my God, even, all of his constituents are angry about DOGE. I still think there's what's the public opinion on DOGE right now, would you say, Congressman, just as a guess?
Well, I would say anecdotally, based on what I'm hearing back from my district, it's about a 75% excited and happy that this is actually happening. They've been waiting for it for a long time. And you're right. You've got these activists. Many of them are paid activists. They represent different groups that have been making their money off the government for decades, and they don't want to see this happen. So they're literally trying to create some opposition that just doesn't exist. And I would go back to the president's speech the other night, which they wanted to pan. They wanted to be negative about it. I think depending on which poll you were looking at, 68 to 76% of Americans thought that was great. That's exactly what they want to hear. He made promises, Joe, and he is delivering on those promises. And the Americans that voted for him, 77 million Americans, are really happy about it.
There's a couple of side issues to talk about. The Supreme Court, Roberts and Coney Barrett, and if you read the dissent from the four conservatives, they're like, this is a district court judge. You're going to let a district court judge have the decision to ship $2 billion off that we're never going to get back. How does that make sense? Was that a setback for these efforts, do you think, Congressman?
No, and by the way, Kai, the full disclosure, I have not read the opinion yet. That is very important so that I understand exactly what the analysis was. But I'm going to tell you, it could be a setback for the Supreme Court. They have to start recognizing this separation of powers, which they seem to do in every other area. Again, this one may have a legal basis, but like you say, I haven't read it yet, and I haven't read the dissent. I don't think it's a setback at all. I think it is actually what the public wants to see. And I think we got to be very careful, because it's the rule of law that matters. But it's the application as well. And for far too long, I think the electorate, a big group that are supporting for Trump, believes that some of our judges on the bench are more pseudo-legislators, which is not what they're supposed to be.
Do you see any evidence that there could be some negative consequences? Probably you would not like the way I characterize it, with a shoot first, ask questions later. I mean, some of this, it's almost like we don't know if what we're cutting is going to have a bad effect until we try it and then we hear about the bad effect. Is it worth it to do it that way, to go headlong into it without thinking about the consequences? That's the criticism that you hear from the other side as well.
Of course you do. And I mean, I get it. Elon Musk made a point to our members last night that they're not going to be batting 1,000% on everything. And he made a very direct request that if you have specific issues with constituents, get in touch with him directly. Let him know. Literally, this has to happen. I would argue, Joe, the American public's been waiting for this for 30 years. And if you're not going to go after the waste, fraud, and abuse in government, if you're not going to try and reform it so that it gets back to serving the people instead of ruling over them, you're going to have to do some of this. And then it's up to us, the legislators, working with our constituents at home, when there is that instance where something good got caught up with all this bad. And I would blame the people, by the way, that turned our federal government into their personal ATM for their political agenda, for putting all the good stuff at risk, too. But it'll be up to us to work with Elon Musk and Doge, but more importantly, with the White House, to let them know that this one is important. This serves the mission of our federal government, and you went a little too far with whatever it is, and then we'll see where it goes.
Right. Majority Whip, one of the big questions I think that the American public may have, they may not have it yet, but I think that they're going to have, you may disagree with me, is whatever you think at minimum, the short-term pain of these tariffs ultimately turns into, as it relates to jobs, as it relates to additional costs for goods and the like. And just when you talk to your own constituents, how they feel about that, how long you think that they will be willing to put up with it, assuming you believe, as I would like to think, and I know the president thinks, that there's a rainbow on the other side, but to get there might be more challenging than some people want.
Andrew, I would never disagree with you, but I will say on this one, the president, I don't think it's the rainbow on the other side. The president is actually fighting for the American people. It's a simple message. The message is, if you want to do business with us, then you need to treat our producers, you need to treat our imports the way we treat yours. It's as simple as that. We will treat you as you treat us. And
Tom,
by the
I understand
way,
that. I'm just saying the cost of them treating us the way we treat them, oddly enough, could be higher, meaning the American public may ultimately have to actually pay more for that rather than less.
Andrew, I'm not disputing that. There may be some short-time disruption that's going to result in some negative impacts, no question. But this is the point. And if you or others think that this is going to somehow reduce the president's popularity, think again. He has campaigned on this. He made a point to the American people, they don't care about you. We want free trade, but we want it to be fair. And he is trying to make it fair. So I got a governor at home who's totally incompetent, who's saying that Trump doesn't care about the farmers. Well, I got news for him. What Trump is trying to do is make sure that our dairy industry has full and free access to the Canadian market, just like we give the Canadians full and free access to fair access to the U.S. markets. In the short term, could that cause some disruption and problems? Yes. In the long term, it's the best thing you could do for the greatest producers on the face of the planet right here in the United States of America.
Whip Emmer, you're from Minnesota. I just don't understand. I mean, is that the same state as Tim Walz and Ken Martin and Al Franken? Where'd you come from? How did it? I don't even think Minnesota didn't even vote for Reagan. That is the only state. I mean, are you like? Are you usually in go around incognito, or are you okay there? You got some Republicans around?
You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised. Our governor, who should be done, I mean, he embarrassed us and himself on the national stage with that failed presidential run. Our governor won re-election just barely. Fact of the matter is, he only won 13 counties out of 87. He lost the 74 he lost. He got 37% of the vote, Joe. So it's much closer than people think. And our 13 county.
That's all I got to say. That's all I got to say to you, Tom. Al Franken.
I mean, he still has me laughing.
I'm only kidding. I love Minnesota. Love the Vikings. Love the state. Love all the lakes. Love you. Thank you. Good to have you on this morning, Mr. Whip.
Appreciate you guys.
Okay.
Thank you. Great to see you.